And what happens if the Jedi discover how you created them?
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Star Wars Acolyte Episode 3 video. There are a whole bunch of Easter eggs and references. Obviously, a big flashback episode 2, giving us most of the story about what really happened. Not the entire story, but I think they gave us enough pieces to guess what happened on both sides of the conflict. Like, what was May blaming the Jedi for so much if she very clearly lit the fire? If you're brand new to the channel, we're doing videos for all the episodes. Be sure to subscribe to get everything. The actual episode was titled Destiny, which is a reference to the thread of destiny, which is a reference back to what the Nightsisters said during the Ahsoka series. All the Nightsisters from the Purrgil galaxy, like the ancient witch kingdom of the Dathmiri.
Shall once again require the aid of your dark magic.
The thread of destiny demands it.
They kind of made it seem like Osha and May's coven of Force witches are actually descended from the Nightsisters. Now, they weren't Nightsisters themselves because it seems like their coven was made up of a bunch of different races, and typically the Nightsisters are all from the same race. The other interesting thing, too, because they sort of get into this whole concept of the Jedi policing the actual use of the Force. Like, they don't like non-Jedi Force users. But on Dathomir, during this same period in history, during the High Republic, the Nightsisters were also active, so the Nightsisters were still off doing their own thing. So why do we have this group of Force witches? Are they connected to the Nightsisters, or were they part of the Nightsisters, or descended from the Nightsisters at some point? Because Mother Coral here definitely looks like a Zabrak. Not all Zabrak have the red skin like Darth Maul. The actual thread of destiny that the Nightsisters talk about is just the way the Nightsisters tap into and see the Force, using it to look across space and time, or communicate across space and time. That's how they were able to pull the blade of Talzin, like Mother Talzin's blade, across galaxies. They also imply that Mother Anastasia got up to some really weird Force practices when she was conceiving the twins. But I do not think that they're actually trying to say that they were conceived by the midichlorians themselves. Like, we're not talking about Anakin Skywalker Immaculate Conception situation. I think there was definitely an actual biological father involved in the process at some point. Just that when they were going about the process of conceiving the twins, she did use the Force to influence them. We start on Brendok 16 years ago, the planet that they came from, to reveal what the tragedy was, like what happened to cause everything in present day, why May wants to go around killing all these Jedi in revenge. They start with Osha sitting under the Bunta tree. That's the same tree that the poison in present day came from. Ruins of some kind nearby. Not really clear what they're ruins of. Maybe ruins of whatever culture used to live here, because the way that Mother Anastasia talks about it, their coven seems like they fled to this planet a while ago, but the fortress that they live in seems like it was built a while ago, so they might have just been living on this planet for a while. It's also possible that the temple already existed there and they just moved into the temple and made it their own. But you can see why in present day, May used the Bunta poison, why it was so symbolic for her when she was killing Torben. It's a reminder of what happened all those years ago, the tragedy itself. They use this opening scene to kind of show you the dichotomy between the personalities of the different twins. So like Osha is sitting there wanting to be off on her own, wanting to be independent from May. May doesn't want to have any of that. Like, she only wants Osha right there all the time, joined at the hip. They show you how they lean towards different aspects of the Force, like Osha is a little more light side leaning, May's a little more dark side leaning. She grabs the flying creature with the Force really quickly, but then lets it go. The music is a little more hopeful, but then the music goes kind of dark, and you see May Force grab it and act like she's going to kill it before Osha starts yelling at her. They start talking about their Ascension ceremony, which is basically the rite of passage for their coven of Force witches when they become treated like adults, like they become full members of their coven. May starts reciting that same Always One But Born as Two song they sang in her Force vision. Mother Coral, who we find out is actually more significant to their creation, we'll talk about that in a second, brings them back to the fortress that they're living in. We find out they're tailed by Soul. It sounds like this is the whole reason why the Jedi were on this planet to begin with. Like, they were all stationed here, but it sounds like the Jedi sent them there because they learned that this coven of Force witches was practicing there, and they had actually started to train these children. So it wasn't like they were stationed here on a regular basis. They were sent here to actually find out what was going on with this coven of Force witches. Like I said though, the actual fortress on this mountain seems kind of ancient, similar to the Nightsisters style of construction on Purrgil, but this could have been left by whatever culture lived on this planet long before this. They introduced Mother Anastasia, the leader of their coven. She's also Osha and May's mother. Now, like, she calls a lot of them mother. They're all referenced as mothers as part of this coven. But I think the twins carry some of Mother Anastasia's biological material, so like she is literally their mother. It seems like she's in a relationship with Mother Coral, who is also responsible for carrying them to term, which we find out later. Not sure why Mother Anastasia didn't carry them to term. There might be some medical reason why she couldn't carry them to term, or it might be part of the ritual that she used in the Force, like whatever practices in the Force they use to actually create them. Combination of the old-fashioned way of conceiving children mixed with some Force practices, whatever their coven of witches uses to practice the Force. Sounds like it also involves a lot of the dark side elements of the Force too, which gets into a lot of the prequel talk when Anakin Skywalker is learning from Darth Sidious, aka Emperor Palpatine, that Darth Plagueis had learned how to influence the midichlorians to create life. So I think they're trying to bump up a little bit against that, but I don't know necessarily that the twins themselves were created the same way that Anakin Skywalker was created. Just that the Coven was using dark side Force energy to influence the twins' conception. Really easy to see why the Jedi were not so hard on that. Really do not want some dark side Force Coven of witches 3D printing children on the fly. And even though she makes a lot of references to things that the Night Sisters said on Ahsoka, and they're wearing a lot of red, like red in her hair, red in her clothing, they might just be tangentially tied to the Night Sisters in some way. Like maybe they used to be part of the Night Sisters, then their order broke off a long time ago. When she starts talking about their philosophy of the Force, another view of what the Force is, how it works, she says it ties you, binds you to others like this thread of destiny. That's also based on the classic Obi-Wan Kenobi speech to Luke Skywalker during A New Hope, when he's talking about what the Force is.
It ties you to your destiny. It binds you to others.
The Force is what gives the Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together.
All this talk from her about stronger together than you'll experience the Force with all of us together makes it sound like they're trying to tease the idea of the twins in present day, like the adult twins, combining their powers and using the Force together, being even more powerful. Sort of like a twin stacking bonus to using the Force. We'll call that Chekhov's Force dyad, probably gonna have to go off in the next couple of episodes. You kind of get the vibe that Osha really isn't down with their practice of the Force. Like, she wants to be independent, she wants to see the galaxy, she's very curious about what's going on beyond the walls of their fortress. But it seems like May is totally down with being a Force witch. When she says that thread, quote-unquote, tied them together before they were born, like the twins together before they were born, that's another thread to the Night Sisters' thread of destiny. She starts implying what's going on with the Jedi during this period in history around the galaxy when she says life outside the Fortress isn't so great for people like us who practice the Force like us or have abilities like us. Like I said earlier, they basically want to set up the idea that the Jedi during this period, and this kind of bears out in their scenes later when the Jedi actually enter their fortress, are acting basically like police of the Force, like they police the use of the Force. It sounds like they didn't really care that much about the actual Force Coven of Witches, only the fact that they were training what they thought were children. Like, oh, you're training children now, that's a big problem. So even though it seems like they don't think that they're Sith or anything like that, they think they could be just as bad as Sith. Like, no, we want you to practice the Force in this very particular way, the way the Jedi Order is teaching. Especially if you're talking about children. Anastasia implies, though, she doesn't want Osha to leave and become a Jedi because she doesn't want the Jedi to take or erase their culture. That's part of their whole oath that they take when they go through their ascension ceremony. You promise to keep our traditions secret and continue our order even after my death. So it's not so much that they hate the Jedi, it's just that they don't want their culture to be erased. Even though when they're using the Force during the episode, you can see them clearly channeling the dark side, they don't seem like they're overtly evil. Not in a full-blown Sith kind of way. When they actually start the ceremony, like it goes on for a while, it's a long ceremony, not clear what's going on in this deep dark hole that they're chanting in front of. Probably just an area on this mountain here that's strong in the dark side of the Force. You start to get those vibes from May, like she is not going to let Osha, like she starts to really freak out. When they start chanting during the ceremony, it also kind of looks like they're motioning, like they're grabbing the strands of destiny in the Force, like they're grabbing Force literally, but it's more like the thread of destiny. Some of the designs on Mother Anastasia's dress also seem like they meant to represent this metaphor, this whole thread of destiny idea. She says this is the first time they performed the ceremony since their coven was exiled. Now, not clear what they were exiled from, because like I said, Dathomir still very active with Night Sisters during this period. Maybe they just lived somewhere near Dathomir. Like I said, they could be an offshoot of the Night Sisters that just allowed other members of different races into their coven. When she says they were blessed with the twins, the gift of life, she makes them sound like Immaculate Conception, but like I said, I don't think that was exactly the case. Like it wasn't an Anakin Skywalker situation. But their ability, their practices in the Force might be part of the way that Darth Plagueis learned how to influence the midichlorians to create life. So when Palpatine is talking about the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise and how they might be able to use those techniques to save Padme, quote unquote, trying to bait Anakin basically, some of those techniques could be because of what happens during this series, like some of the things they learned during this series from May and Osha. There are a couple metaphors here too. Notice when she starts talking about the thread of destiny, tying them together and nothing can separate that. That's going to be something that they pay off in present day in later episodes. But in the sky behind her, you notice that the moon is illuminated. It looks just like the symbol from the opening title scene, the red and blue eclipse. There are a bunch of metaphors baked into that I talked about during my episode 1 video, like the whole idea of the dark side eclipsing the light side, the twin sisters, one light side leaning, one dark side leaning. We find out the twins' full names. May's full name is Mayho, and Osha's full name is Varosha. When they promise to always uphold the tenets of their coven, they'll continue the legacy, they won't let it die out even after Mother Anasea's death. We'll see how that carries forward into present day. It sounds like in present day right now, May does want that to happen, like she wants to continue their traditions. Osha obviously doesn't want to have anything to do with it. But one of the twists they might introduce by the end of the series is that Osha also might decide that she wants to continue their traditions at the end of the series as well too. A lot of people also wondering if that's going to be one of the other big twists, if Osha winds up being the one to go dark at the end of the series and not May. When the Jedi actually show up at their temple, notice the weapons they grab are bows, arrows, staffs. That's because they probably don't need energy weapons. They're actually able to influence Torben's mind pretty easily. Then we see the 4 Jedi show up that May is trying to kill in present day, sort of explaining some of the backstory of what actually happened all those years ago. Indara, Sol, Kelnaka, and turns out Torben is also Indara's Padawan during this period. Most of you obviously recognize him as King Tommen from Game of Thrones. It is Charles Dean Chapman. It was also him during episode 2, but the makeup he was wearing, the wig, just made him look really, really different. Like I said earlier, the thing they actually get on their case about isn't so much their different practice of the Force that's very non-Jedi. It's actually more the fact that they're training children. So part of the idea is it seems like the Jedi doesn't really want this order to continue to persist through generations. Like, you know what, you're fine doing your thing right here, but as long as this doesn't continue past your generation, you're fine. When they start arguing about how they're going to deal with the Jedi, like I said, Coral says she brought the girls into this world because she carried them to term. Anasea says she created them, though. I think there was probably a biological father involved in some way. She probably just used a special ceremony in actual dark side Force energy when the actual conception was going down, when the deed was going down. Notice, though, how wary she gets when she says she doesn't want the Jedi to find out how she created the twins. I think this gets into some of their dark side Force practices. Like I said, this could link up with what they're doing with Darth Plagueis during the events of the prequels. They also confirmed that the twins are supposed to be incredibly powerful in the Force, probably as a result of whatever she did when she was conceiving the twins. The next day when they go to the Jedi ship, kind of seems like Osha gets her interest in being a mechanic from Kelnaka a little bit, but she's already got some skills, which we find out about later in the episode, like she was always kind of interested in being a mechanic. Notice that Torben takes a midichlorian sample to test her count, M count they call it. When they give her the test, this is the same one that was given to Anakin Skywalker at the Jedi Temple. Like, guess all the different shapes and different types of things popping up on the screen here. And they just have a bit of a funny moment with her clearly guessing wrong, Sol clocking that she's guessing wrong on purpose. But then before he can call her out, she actually calls it out herself, revealing that she knew what the correct answer was. Inside the United States, there are a couple of college entrance exams like the ACTs, the SATs. There's always a handful of people that you hear about every year that ace them, but not because they guess the correct answers on the college entrance exams, because they guess all the wrong answers. And in order to do that, you'd actually have to know what the right answer was so you didn't accidentally pick the right answer. When Sol says he was 4 when the Jedi took him, that's actually the normal age where the Jedi Temple, even across the ages back to the Old Republic, the Ancient Jedi Order, would take children. During episode 1, they actually made another Anakin Skywalker prequels reference when they said that Osha was about 8 years old when they took her, which is way too old. That's how old Anakin Skywalker was during Phantom Menace. After they go back, she reveals what's happened. May flips her shit again, and it kind of seems like Mother Anastasia is cool with Osha's choice. Like, if you want to go, then go, sure. Like, she's going to let her leave, but not so much May, who locks her in her room, then starts a fire using paper, like there's a book of paper inside the Star Wars universe, which is very rare. Really funny Easter egg here too. Paper did not exist in the Star Wars universe until The Last Jedi, when they introduced the concept of the sacred Jedi texts. More recently, there have been more examples of paper inside the comics and the books and stuff like that, but just in the live-action movies, there had never been paper before The Last Jedi. It seems like the symbol that's inside their book here is just the symbol of their order of Force witches. And it kind of seems like May goes into a weird trance state when she's lighting this fire. Maybe she's influenced in some way here, like maybe somebody's pulling strings, or maybe it's just her just flying off the deep end going crazy. Osha reveals she does have some mechanic skills already, hotwires herself in escape. And the rest of the women are screaming above. We find out that there's some sort of battle that we missed, like they didn't show us everything that happened and how the Force witches died. When she runs into the reactor room, it's also in the middle of exploding. May is there, but it's not clear if May also caused the reactor to blow, or the Jedi did it. Soul's able to save Osha before she falls into the chasm, but May does fall in. We know she survived, though, obviously, because we see her at the end of the episode. We see her in present day. But notice all the rest of the Force witches are dead. It seems it was a huge battle that went down while the fire was raging. Notice in the background, too, zoom and enhance, you can see Torben's face is scarred just like it is in present day. Meaning, early theory, what I think is going on here, and we'll get the rest of this flashback at some point in later episodes. Remember, in present day, Torben seemed like he was pretty clear the Jedi bore some responsibility for what happened. He wanted to atone, and that's why he killed himself, effectively. So early theory is that May did cause the fire, that is correct, but she was not responsible for the death of the Coven. The Jedi were actually responsible because they got into a big fight. They also showed up while the fire was going on, and then just blamed their deaths on the fire, covering it up. And it sounds like Soul was not part of that, like he showed up at the temple with the Jedi separately got into a fight, like these other three got into a fight while Soul was down below trying to save May and Osha. So technically Soul is not responsible for the death of the rest of the Coven. Like if you wanted to actually blame someone, it was the three other Jedi that May has already killed or is still trying to kill because Kel Naka is still alive. I think some of the trailer footage also corroborates this too, because it seems like the Force witches use their power to take over the Jedi's minds and cause them to fight each other briefly. So both May and Osha are correct, like the Jedi did wind up killing those coven of witches because they got into a big fight. But also Osha is correct in saying that May did start the fire. It's just that Osha and Soul don't have all the information and they only think that the fire is what killed the coven. What'll probably eventually happen is that Osha will learn the full truth, like, oh, the Jedi that I believe in so much did actually kill my mother in her coven and try to cover it up. Even though all the Jedi there were not responsible, like Soul was not responsible for that. It also kind of seems like he had no knowledge of what the Jedi did either. They take Osha back to Coruscant where she begins her training under Soul, becomes his Padawan. Then later the next day, we see May, who's survived, go back to the Bunta tree and call out for her sister. At some point, clearly, she wound up finding the Sith Master, or the Sith Master found her. Not really clear if he was around during this period and clocking what was going on and influencing what was happening. We'll probably get the rest of the story in the next couple of episodes. Not really clear if the trailer footage actually covers the back half of the season or if it's just all footage from the first half of the season. But everyone post all your theories in the comments below. Like, do you kind of see both sides of this where May was responsible for the fire, but the Jedi also got into the fight with the Force witches while the fire was happening, so technically the Jedi did kill the Force Coven? Next week, we can start talking about the other ongoing mystery, the identity of the Sith Master or the Sith Apprentice, whoever this person winds up being. I think we figured that out. I talk about that during my episode 2 video, so I'll link that at the end of this. My full episode 4 video will post next week after they release it. Big reminder, The Boys Season 4 episodes and House of the Dragon Season 2 episodes are also starting this week. I'll be doing videos every single week for all of them. Be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that, because it is going to be awesome the next couple of months. Everybody click here for my House of the Dragon Season 2 Episode 1 non-spoilery review, and click here for all my Acolyte episode videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.